This teacher and her son were taking advantage of their position in the worst way. This Uber driver randomly went after his passenger. And this guy couldn't handle rejection, so he, stay put and find out. Let's get right to a few of the most despicable criminals, starting with number 6, the Despicable Mom and Son. Kedria Grigsby, a 42-year-old cosmetology teacher at Klein Cain High School in Harris County, Texas, was arrested and charged. Authorities believe Grigsby, along with her 21-year-old son Roger Magee, targeted vulnerable teens by offering them shelter, sometimes putting them up in hotels. These allegations have shaken the local community, particularly the high school where Grigsby taught and was trusted by students. Grigsby's alleged activities were revealed after a series of reports and accusations pointed to her involvement in using teenagers for her own gain. It's reported that she approached at-risk teens, including runaways, persuading them to stay in her provided accommodations, which often ended in troubling situations. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez shared that Grigsby and Magee managed to set up where teens engaged in illicit work, funneling the earnings back to them. This case hasn't only raised questions about Grigsby's actions, but also about the school district's response. Allegedly, concerns were raised to Klein Independent School District, known as the Klein ISD, about Grigsby's behavior over a year before her arrest, meaning they were aware something shady was going on. Despite a district employee's formal complaint suggesting Grigsby may have been exploiting students, no significant action was taken at the time. The district recently clarified that they cooperated with authorities in 2023, but Grigsby wasn't considered a suspect then. Beyond the legal aspects, details reveal Grigsby's involvement in handling the financial side of this operation. Records show messages between Grigsby and Magee discussing funds made through the teens' activities, hinting at a structured operation. Investigators noted that Grigsby received payments from these activities, managing transactions through digital payment apps. Klein ISD has expressed deep regret, assuring families that their priority remains student safety, which feels a bit empty considering what they knew beforehand. They have since placed Grigsby on administrative leave and said that she won't return to the district. The arrest has spurred the school to encourage families to talk to their children about any unusual interactions and to report any concerning information to local authorities. As of the release of this video, both remain in custody awaiting trial, with Grigsby's bond set at $750,000. It's troubling that incidents like these continue to occur, with some school boards seemingly slow to take action. When teachers aren't outright engaging in misconduct, they sometimes create situations that put students at risk. Yet, responses often seem limited or challenging to enforce. It's no surprise that many parents are increasingly choosing homeschooling over public education, a trend that grew significantly during the COVID-19 pandemic, with rates rising from about 3.3% pre-pandemic to 11.1% by fall 2020. Still, homeschooling comes with its own challenges, including concerns over educational quality, socialization, and oversight. Some experts warn that without uniform standards, bad homeschooling can easily negatively impact the development of children's education and overall well-being. Number 5. Another inappropriate situation. Alissa McCommon, a 4th grade teacher from Tennessee, is facing up to 25 years in prison after she was arrested on charges related to inappropriate conduct involving a former student. The story of McCommon's arrest has deeply affected her community, as her role as a teacher has now been overshadowed by some pretty serious allegations that paint a very different picture. According to authorities, McCommon allegedly began reaching out to young students outside the classroom. Police reports say that McCommon befriended multiple students online, chatting with them through social media, and even joining them in video games. Investigators said that her interactions allegedly crossed the line because while talking and playing video games is one thing, she obviously shouldn't be doing that, but it's not illegal. But then, She also apparently sent inappropriate messages and images to the students. Concerns first emerged after a parent reported McCommon's behavior to school authorities, leading to her suspension from her teaching position. In response, other students came forward with their own claims, describing similar interactions. It's alleged that McCommon once invited a 12-year-old former student to her home, where things escalated. This case has left pretty much everyone in the community wondering how this could happen, especially with someone in a trusted role like a teacher. And understandably, many parents were furious, believing that school officials should have acted sooner to prevent any potential incidents. Meanwhile, McCommon maintains her innocence. Her attorney has argued that social media has amplified the allegations, absurdly comparing it to a witch hunt. A Tipton County grand jury indicted McCommon on 23 counts that you'd expect her to be indicted on. And of course, it gets worse. After her initial release on bond, McCommon was rearrested for allegedly contacting one of her victims, violating bond conditions. Apparently, there was evidence from a recorded phone call where McCommon told a victim she was pregnant with his child, which she wasn't, making the whole thing even more bizarre. As of the release of this video, she's back in custody, waiting for her trial to start in January of 2025. Number 4. The Random Rage. Melody Sasser, a 48-year-old environmental compliance specialist, got herself a prison sentence of over 8 years after pleading guilty to a disturbing plot. Authorities reported that Sassler tried to hire an online triggerman to terminate the wife of a guy named David Wallace, who she had met through a dating site. A complex scheme involved placing an order on a dark website known for its illegal services, where she paid nearly $10,000 in Bitcoin to arrange the incident. Sasser's online communications detailed her requests, specifying that she wanted the act to appear accidental in order to avoid a lengthy investigation. She shared extensive information about the target's life, including her home, work schedule, vehicle details, and even her husband's part-time job. Despite Sassler's instructions, weeks passed without the job being completed, leading her to press the site's administrator for updates on the delay. The situation took a serious turn when a foreign law enforcement agency alerted U.S. officials about the threat. Investigators traced Sasser's Bitcoin payments to CoinHub ATMs she had used, eventually linking her to the dark web account she operated under the alias Cattree. A search of her home revealed additional evidence: journals listing various hitman websites, recorded conversations with the online site, and cash under a sticky note marked with a Bitcoin address. Before the plot, Sassler had formed a relationship with David Wallace, the husband of her intended target, through shared hiking trips on the Appalachian Trail. As in, they met up and did the hike, which can take months to do if they were doing the trail in full. Their relationship seemed to abruptly end, though, and apparently, Sassler had a hard time dealing with it. It appears as though Wallace viewed it as more of a friendship. So Wallace moved on, got into another relationship, then as that progressed, he moved to Alabama to marry the woman who would end up being his current wife. Once Wallace moved, Sasser began showing up at the couple's home, leaving voicemails from disguised numbers, and even tracking their movements through a fitness app. In court, Sasser's attorney pointed to her history of volunteer work and emphasized a personal breakdown as a factor in her actions. However, the prosecutor argued that her plans went far beyond a single decision, revealing a disturbing level of obsession and planning. As of the release of this video, Sasser is serving her 100-month prison sentence. Then, after her release, she'll be under supervised release for 3 years and is required to pay over $5,300 in restitution to the victim. This sad situation is an example of the impact that unreciprocated feelings and a lack of closure can sometimes have on people. While we don't know all the details, it seems Sasser may have perceived her connection with Wallace as something deeper than it was. This, of course, emphasizes the importance of clear communication in relationships, especially when moving on. Even though the emotional fallout from a relationship ending can be intense, Sasser's actions went far beyond any reasonable response, and any sympathy we may have had for her is dulled by the fact that she literally tried to end someone's life over it. Hopefully, she gets some help. Number 3. The Terrible Pastor. Monte Lavelle Chitty, a 62-year-old pastor originally from Marathon, Florida, was arrested in Texas after being accused of disgusting behavior involving a minor. Facing allegations of misconduct, Chitty's charges included inappropriate interactions and actions that could endanger a young person's well-being. The whole thing blew up when an anonymous call tipped off authorities. The caller reported hearing troubling details from a 15-year-old girl who later shared her story with investigators. She alleged that Chitty gave her alcohol, leaving her feeling weak and unaware. When she regained clarity, she realized things had happened without her full understanding. In a surprising move, Chitty had initially reached out to law enforcement himself, expressing concern about potential accusations. He claimed he was simply helping the girl rest after she had been drinking, which would have been a nice thing to do. Unfortunately, messages between him and the girl told a very different story, showing conversations that didn't match his account. After being initially released on bond, Chitty didn't attend a required court hearing, leading to a new warrant. He was eventually found in Texas, where he had joined a local church group's outreach program. When a member recognized him, they alerted authorities, leading to his arrest. As of the release of this video, Chitty has been returned to Florida, where he's being held on a significant bond as he awaits his day in court, which isn't going to go well for him. Hopefully he gets thrown away for a long, long time, and everyone knows what awaits these types of monsters in prison. Number 2. The Uber driver. Francisco Valadez, an Indianapolis Uber driver, was arrested after authorities discovered his involvement in a tragic incident. The case revolved around Chanty Dixon, a mother of 2, who was found lifeless in a wooded area near her home after using Valadez's rideshare service. Her disappearance was reported by her family, who grew worried when they tracked her phone to the location where her body was later discovered. Valadez initially denied any involvement, but as investigators pieced together evidence, his version of events began to unravel. Court documents revealed a troubling timeline. Valadez had picked up Dixon after her late shift, but during questioning, he gave conflicting statements about what occurred after she entered his car. At first, he claimed a third person attempted a robbery, but detectives noticed inconsistencies and soon learned that his story didn't match up with other evidence. After further questioning, Valadez eventually admitted to several serious offenses, leading to his arrest on multiple charges. The details painted a disturbing picture. Valadez had reportedly attempted to force himself on Dixon, during which she insulted his physical appearance. He claimed that this insult provoked him, leading to his terrible reaction, which ultimately ended in tragedy. Investigators later found that he had attempted to remove evidence from his vehicle. Statements from his family confirmed he had been cleaning his car shortly before the investigation, which raised further suspicions. Following the arrest, rideshare company Uber responded by banning Valadez from its platform and offering condolences to Dixon's family. The company highlighted its commitment to safety, citing recent enhancements such as emergency buttons and location sharing features. Despite these measures, this incident raised concerns about user safety within the rideshare industry, prompting officials to urge users to stay vigilant. As of the release of this video, Valadez has been arrested and charged with some pretty horrific acts, and officials anticipate additional charges will be filed. Dixon's family, devastated by the incident, continues to mourn their loss, remembering her as a caring mother. Number 1. The Despicable Response. The incident involving 19-year-old twin sisters, Samia and Sania Spain, took a tragic turn when they encountered a stranger at a Brooklyn deli. Vio Kelly, a 20-year-old Brooklyn resident, surrendered to authorities after being linked to an incident following a confrontation that escalated outside the deli. Kelly had crossed paths with the sisters earlier in the evening, approaching them at a party venue nearby. The sisters declined his advances and, wanting to avoid further attention, offered minimal interaction. Unwilling to accept their rejection, Kelly waited outside the deli, where the sisters had gone for a late-night snack. When they exited, he confronted them once again, leading to an altercation that left Samia unalive and her sister Sania injured. The twins were well known at the deli, a neighborhood favorite where they often stopped for snacks. That night, however, their routine was disrupted by an unexpected encounter with Kelly, whose frustration with being turned down quickly intensified. After his arrest, Police uncovered evidence, including clothing that matched surveillance footage from the night of the incident, linking him directly to the scene. Kelly's background included several prior charges, but his release on electronic monitoring allowed him to be free on the night of the meeting. The tragedy left neighbors and friends stunned, especially those who remembered Samia as a bright young woman with aspirations to attend college. A vigil, held in her memory, brought together the local community, who expressed disbelief and sorrow over such an avoidable loss. Family and friends shared stories of Samia's kindness and ambitions, while many voiced their frustration over the circumstances that enabled Kelly's repeated encounters with the law. As the community mourns, Samia's family begins the difficult process of preparing for her memorial, reflecting on a life that was filled with potential and deeply cherished by those close to her. It's sad that something as simple as turning down this guy's advances was enough to push Kelly to react the way he did. It raises serious questions about why someone with such a clear disregard for others' safety was even out in the first place. That ankle monitor did little to prevent this tragedy, making you wonder what exactly it was there for to begin with. Unfortunately, there's no reassuring takeaway here, just a harsh reality. Sometimes, people intent on causing harm do so, despite every attempt to keep them in check. In Kelly's case, it seemed like a matter of if, then when. Click to watch one of these next videos.